today with the pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we've got several items we're going to deal with today. Starting bright and early, so everybody will be fresh. But let's start with approving the minutes of the June the 19th, June the 22nd, so the 28th, and the July 2nd regular meetings. Mr. Curry?
Second.
Mr. Wilkerson? All in favor?
Yes.
Do we have anyone that signed in today?
No, sir.
All right, so the next item on our agenda would be our board work session. And Dave Ferguson's with us today to lead us down this path to take the next step. Mr. Ferguson.
Well, we need to, board needs to decide or determine what projects we want to put on the bond today. I guess you want to go over those. This is the, I'll hand out, unless you have something, I don't know if Brenda's included anything in your packet. Projects that we talked about last time, it's the same sheet. Yeah, it's the same, exactly the same one. The only issues with, that we don't have on here are cost issues related to the site for Midway. We talked about the Guyan Valley, but it has no land cost. Lincoln County has their property. West Hamlin has the property there, and so does Harts. Now that property will have to be purchased as well, and we go across the road. And if you want to consider the other projects, the Ranger Duval with Hamlin. Renovate Ranger probably wouldn't have any land costs there at all either. That's basically, now, if you pass out the existing CEFT, do you want to
Yes.
review that?
Let me just clarify that. Now, the committee, now, from what I understood, you just said that Midway and Harts would require acquisition of land. Is that the only?
Yes, yes.
Now, on Ranger, I know at one point there was some discussion of whether we would try to use the existing site or another. What did the committee decide on using, acquiring another site on Route?
That's if we were going to build a new Ranger.
Okay, so this is just renovate and stay where you are. Okay. All right, thank you. Brenda's given us you all a copy of our 10-year facility plan. I think on page 3 here, you can see what we approved here a couple of years ago, and that's submitted to the SBA and the State Board of Senate. The reason I talked to Mr. Ferguson about this before, because should there be any differences in what we're going to propose on our bond call versus what we've already approved, correct me if I'm wrong, that would require us to approve that revision of our CEFP and submit it to the SBA and the State Department.
Right. And we would submit that in September. And that would follow. And it's typical, that's when it would happen. Every year, the state or the counties resubmit any changes to their CEFP. They may put one project over another in their 10-year plan, and that's typically how they do that. And then you have your bond vote potentially in December, and then that would all be in place prior to that.
As we look at it right now, are there any that you foresee that would require revisions?
Yes, you would probably revise if you look at the chart on page 3, the Midway Elementary would be included with the kids from Duval. Is that right?
Yes.
And then Ranger would not be a new facility, you'd have just a renovation to that. And you would probably reprioritize what some of this would be. And that makes it more clear as to what would happen. That's not uncommon.
Right, I understand. Just wanted to make sure, because I was thinking, when we approved this, like, for the Midway Duval, we really did make a definite decision as to how we were going to, the configuration of those schools, and that's kind of what we would be doing with the proposed bond call, right?
Yes.
Look at the next page.
I'm sorry, page 4.
Because this is the golf carts, people work together, and you have the back of the Midway.
But it doesn't have the Ranger.
The Midway plus the Duval, I don't know if that was,
That's the projected school. The Ranger is not projected to be with Hearts in this, what you'd be voting on today.
okay, but it does have the Hearts
It does have-
PKA. It combined the intermediate and the primary
Yes.
at Hearts.
And this one would show the Midway and Duval, correct? Yes.
That's correct.
So if we use the one that Chris pointed out to us here, Midway, this would be accurate the way this is stated here, correct?
That would be accurate except for the Ranger piece.
Except for Ranger.
And the only thing we would change would be the Ranger be an addition rather than combined parts.
Anybody else have any questions or thoughts about this chart? Apparently, we'll just do whatever research necessary, and then at some point, just come back before the board to approve the
Yes.
the changes.
Right, as soon as we revise this, as soon as this is voted on, we'll revise this, bring that back before the board. We'll revise your CEFP as soon as you decide what projects you want to do.
Is that acceptable?
Yes.
Yes. All right, thank you. So apparently our next step then is, you get the, look at the handout that was just given to us. May the 22nd, that'd be the latest one. And, Mr. Ferguson, and also we have our maintenance director, Dana Smith, back there, and he'll be available to clarify, I'm sure, anything left of that. Mr. Ferguson. So, now I notice on our agenda, we have 8 positions. There are 8 of these projects in that one. You put it in there already?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
That's what experience will do for you. Okay, now, where did I read here? These projects are not listed in priority order?
Correct.
Okay. Now, as far as the money, amount of monies that will eventually be available was by the projected, the proposed bond issue, and any monies from the SBA. Once again, could you refresh my memory as to how much money we're thinking would be available?
We met with the bond council back in the middle of June, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm to speak here, I think your bonding capacity is 24,765,000.
That's correct.
And we would recommend that you don't go the full amount. No one ever goes to the full amount, so you want to do about maximum probably 24 million.
Right, and I've got the levy rates based on that number right here.
24 million from flood while you're.
And once we determine how much you want to do, we need to go immediately to the SBA, get some commitments from them, more firm commitment than what we talked about in the past. And they at one time talked about doing the Midway school, I think, taking that out of your mix, and then, because you're consolidating the kids from Midway to Duval, and then your money was more focused on the other projects.
Well, no, we've not really had a conversation.
No, we just had some telephone conversations, nothing definite, that's what.
No one's been,
No.
to address the board at this point.
But we want to get those folks down here as soon as we can, but you all need to vote on projects before we can get a commitment from them.
Any members of the board have any questions about what he's saying here?
I guess,
Mr. Cook?
looked to me like we were going, we need to know where the land's gonna be purchased at and how much it's gonna cost.
Correct.
And looked to me, and has anyone looked at, cause up to Harts High School, or Harts Middle School, I just can't visualize tearing that hillside out for $1.5 million or whatever.
Neither can I.
I don't know whether there's another site, I don't see any possibility on the side of the road where the school's at.
No, it's not, there's not any land on the side of the road where the school is currently. It's-
And how much land are you talking about for athletic for parks?
Well, at one time, the committee talked about just putting a football field over there with some bleachers. That's all they said they needed, that's all they desired to have. And can't remember how that discussion was in the room, but I know that they talked about being able to purchase that property, and they had a willing seller, is what was alluded to us in the meeting. If that's all that they need or they want, depending on how much land and what land we can get, that $1.5 million may fluctuate up or down depending on where it is on that piece of property, or I don't know how that property is situated over there, whether it's 2 parcels or 1 parcel, and that'll have a huge effect on how that works. And the land costs on both projects dictate how much money is in the bond, because I don't know the cost of the land for the Midway school either, and that's going to be critical. If we don't get that cost ironed out soon, then it's guesswork. We don't want to play guesswork.
Well, I guess my question is, when are we gonna find this out?
Well, we need to look and find a property prior to getting the bond put together. And if we can't, then we need to say in the vicinity of a certain area, and we'll look for a piece of property, and work out the money. Now, there's different ways of purchasing land. You can work it out prior to the bond and have an agreement drawn up. Say if the bond passes, we'll purchase this land from this owner for X amount of dollars. And that would be great if we could work all that out prior to the bond call actually being drawn up.
Well, I understand
No one's
that.
ever listed another piece of property or gave us another option for the ball fields other than crossing the school.
Well, I understand that, but when we start buying land, it runs twice what we projected.
Well, that's why
Then
we
we're gonna
have,
have to do away with one of these other projects that we told people we was gonna build.
well, number one, we've got to get an appraisal of property prior to the bond call. We have to have that prior to setting up the bond call, and we have to have appraisals of 1 or 2 pieces of property that will work. And we either negotiate that sale prior to, contingent on the bond passing, or we get an appraisal and then work the deal out afterwards, because you can't deviate from your bond call. Once your bond call is set, that's a legal document, and you have to enter into those agreements and build those facilities.
Well, I'm not for negotiating after, so you see what
Right.
happens first.
Dave, can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Dana, do you know who owns the property across from the current school at Harts, the middle school?
I believe it's a Dingus thing.
Okay, and to your knowledge, Charles Crumfield doesn't own any of it? Because I heard he did.
To my knowledge, they own the curve, the hillside where the curve is, that the Brumfields own that. But right straight across the road is a Dingus man, and I believe his mother lives in the house. If you're at the school facing the road, he lives straight across, like a trailer, there's a trailer straight from school. And to the right of that, I believe, is his mother's house.
That's probably.
It may be the same people that own property where the school is.
But yes, they weren't willing sellers for the property.
I mean,
for
that's
the
the
school.
same family, I believe.
It is the same thing.
Well, Dana,
Exactly the
is
same
the
thing.
room over there to put an Adelaide facility without removing all that mountain?
If you go where the mother's property is, I believe it would be affordable.
Okay.
Where he's at, probably $1.5 million probably wouldn't do it.
And that's not the property we were talking about. We were talking about if you, at the front door of the school, you look across the road to the right, it goes back into a hollow back there.
To
That's
the
where
right, I
we-
believe you could do that, but that would be his mother. He wasn't a willing seller for, of course, you know that, he
Yeah.
wasn't a willing seller for the school property. I don't know that they'd be a willing seller, but
Yeah.
based on my conversation with, maybe somebody in Harts Creek knows more than I do.
I think what Mr. Curry's saying, maybe sometime in the near future, somebody needs to talk to him.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, that needs to happen quickly.
I don't think they need to read about the papers we're going on.
No.
Build something there.
Do you volunteer?
I do whatever I'm told.
Debbie,
I'm just a yes man.
Debbie Dingus seems to think that the property owners would be willing to sell.
Well, that's one in between Debbie and Trish, they can decide who's best to approach them and see. Because I've heard the same thing that Carol's heard, that Mr. Brumfield, Charles owns some of that too, but I may be thinking not exactly the same property.
Well, I was thinking about getting property too.
You know where that would lead us to?
I just know what the cost is.
Strike that from the paper. No, I'm kidding. Put it in your own character.
It's too late. Okay. Anything else, Brad, about that?
No.
All right, so, and one thing we all agree upon is whatever eventually goes in that bond call, if it does get approved, there's no more, you don't have that money to do it, you're gonna have to do all these.
You have, once it goes into bond call, that's what you have to do. You're
Right.
bound by law to do that.
Right, so we all understand that, and I think that's why we wanna be cautious is
That-
what we propose.
And that's why when we decide on the properties, we need to get appraisals, if not some type of a letter with the property owner saying that they will sell it for a certain amount, if that's possible, prior to the bond, because these numbers are very critical. I don't want to go be under budget on anything. That's why I want to redo with the new School Building Authority square foot costs that they have, all your budgets and project them out 3 years. Because that's when you'll have about 6 or 8 months of design time, and then you'll have about 18 months of construction on some of these projects.
Would we not wanna do the same thing at Samerico?
All the projects, we do all that.
I'm trying to talk about trying to
Yes.
see if there's property and who owns it, and what it costs.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we would want to do it, and the SBA would not approve anything until you had a property, and they want to approve the property also for a new school.
And should there be a glitch in that, and it would have to be, look for another site, that could all transpire before the bond call was placed before the voters.
Yeah, but the issue would be, if there's a site that's uncertain, we don't want to put his site in the bond call if it's uncertain.
That's my point.
That we want to stay in the vicinity of Smerico Mountain or in the vicinity of something else. That way you have the option of looking for a piece of property after the bond is voted on. Because if you don't, you're tied to that one piece of property.
Right, I understand.
I have a question on the Midway, where on Smerico Mountain are you gonna find a flat piece of land and go to school?
I believe, I've got three in mind. There's been talk of the old Samaritan, where the old Samaritan School was. I don't believe the access road is going to be feasible for that site, just based on what I know. There's a site at Reba's Lane. The owners there were not willing sellers when I talked to them about 5 years ago. I believe that's a feasible piece of property, and I don't know the Gillen Waters first name. It's Jeff Gillen Waters' dad owns a farm at Buckeye. It's right there near the road, 30-acre farm. He is a willing seller. And I guess maybe we're gonna drive by and look at that today. And that's the only three I've discussed anything with anybody. If there's another one we need to look at, I've put word out to people to be thinking.
I haven't looked, I actually went just this morning out to where the old Smerico Elementary School used to be. There's not, if the land at Midway is not big enough to build a new school on, the land out there is not. And you've got probably, 4,000 homes you would have to purchase to get.
And I guess maybe they were talking about the property, where you go out there and you hit a dead end. I just assumed that the people that were talking about that as a potential site was talking about on past that. Because there is quite a bit of hillside property up through there that could be utilized, but yeah, it's just too far from the road, too far from, I just don't think the access road would be affordable for that site. I don't think it's a good
I
site.
don't think it's feasible. Again, you would have to buy several homes just to get to a place.
I think so too.
And
It's
it's
real
not
narrow.
for sale.
And I think the other two sites are better. I've only seen the one at Reeves Lane. I haven't seen the Gillenwater property yet. But it sounds good, but what I've been told about it, but I haven't seen it yet.
Now, there is a site in Allen Creek on Susie's Lane, which is there at the Midway exit where the mobile home sales used to be. I've spoken with him, he is willing to sell it. He said if we was interested in it, we'd like for the board to get in contact with him.
If it was to go in that direction, there's another willing seller at the Corporal exit that sounds like a good piece of property.
These are off of Quarter G, right?
Yeah, these are off Quarter G, so there are some willing sellers over there. Which is, it's a lot nicer to have, especially when you're going into a bond call. If you want to know what you're going to have to pay for it. If you've got a willing seller, you can
If you get
pick
a
a side.
G at Allen Creek head towards Charleston, you won't go 100 yards and there's a road cuts off to the right. And there's a huge land, there's a mobile home sale there.
Do we know the amount of acreage needed for this proposed school?
It's probably gonna be about 8 acres. Once we make sure we determine the amount of children, that determines the amount of property. Typically the policy 6200 calls that usable acres. So whatever we have can't be, there's variances given all the time for different sites based on property and school design. But I would think what we would try to achieve here is, since we're combining Midway and Duval, we would want a parent road and as well as a bus access drive so that the two traffics don't mix, and it's a lot easier for elementary school for parents and buses not to mix, and that's the new way of the SBA. They're trying to get those all new designs that everyone does. So we'd want as much property as we could get, a minimum of probably at least 8 acres, but I'll confirm that today.
I'm just thinking if this is, here we are, 2012, probably in 2025 or whatever, and whatever school hopefully that's built there is still going to be there, and you're maybe be facing adding on and all that kind of stuff down the road, so the availability of additional land is
Right.
wise, I think.
Yeah, I think if we can get more, if there's a parcel of land that's 12 or 14 acres and it's available, I would recommend you get as much as you can.
Where the money was happening in Midway, you just get landlocked after a while.
And that's extremely tight, and they can't function in that site at Midway. It's very, very tight.
Plus you want to add the athletic fields too, all the athletic fields that do balls in flood zone, so it'd be nice to have some property for those if you could ever afford to do that.
Elm Creek, I think you said there's 25.
It's added to mobile home site, 25 acres.
Do you know the name of that road you turn on? I'll look at it on
Suzie Drive.
Suzie Drive.
When you get on quarter G, and start back towards Charles, you won't go 100 yards, and
It's on the right.
and there's a gate there.
Right beyond Short, come to Davidson Drive, so it's before you get there.
Okay.
Okay. So at this point, we just, in no priority order, we need to identify these acres. I guess I keep wondering if, I look at this, what has been given to us, and it lists, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 projects. And then there's 3 others below that.
The reason why it's broken out like that, the committee, those were the committee's top 5 projects, and then these were the other projects, but they were in particular order. They just felt those were the top 5 that met that bonding capacity that we talked about.
Well, I'm going back to what you said earlier, but at this point, we don't know what we could expect maybe to, or hope to get from the SBA. But the 23.5 or $24 million that we would have, I'm trying to figure out how, at some point, do we have to come back and narrow this list down once the.
Well, I think that what I would do is, vote on the top 5 projects that you would like equal about $35 million. I wouldn't go over $35 million.
Okay.
And then, what we'll do is we'll schedule a meeting with the SBA and get their input on what they are willing to participate in and get a commitment from them. And then, in the meantime, we can work on land and try to get an idea of how much land it's going to cost. And all this is going to happen relatively quickly, so that we can get a more firmer idea of what land is going to cost us, include that into the mix, and then see where all the total numbers are based on enrollments and updated figures. And then we can determine how much bonding capacity we want to do, how much of that 24 million we want. Because if the SBA commits a larger, say they commit 10, 12, 15 million, we don't know at this point. If they were to commit that much money, that would help you. Say if you had 34 million or 35 million and the SBA committed 15, then your bonding capacity would be 15 plus 24 if you wanted to go to full 24. And Jeff has those numbers that we could go over today also. What?
In terms of the levy rates.
Yeah. Did they give you numbers on like a $24 million?
Yeah, for 15 years, 20 years, and 25 years.
And we could go over that if you'd like, that way you get an idea of what you're asking the voters to do.
Now, when you use these different numbers of years, does that alter the amount of money available?
No,
It'd be the same amount of
How
money,
you pay it back.
just how we're paying it.
just how you're paying it back.
Well, I'm just trying to understand, because what we're saying here is, if we were to vote on 8 projects, we really haven't made any decisions, other than these would be our 8 projects. Or do we need to narrow it down to 5 projects and then add on if we have available money, or delete some later on if we don't?
That's what I would do. I would vote on projects not to exceed $35 million or $34 million, and then we could add on or delete depending on how much the land costs, what you're willing to bond, and how much the SBA is willing to contribute.
So what we'd be voting on today would be tentative, because like Mr. Curry said, the cost of land at the park, we don't know the cost at Smerico area, but these could vary.
And, the folks at Harts, they may not want to sell, and if you don't want to get into taking that land for a football field, then that project's off the list unless you can find another seller somewhere in that vicinity to get that property. And that may determine that project. So it depends on how you want to structure that.
So it sounds to me that how we want to phrase this motion here is critical. Right? This is saying we approve the following conclusion on the special bond, 50% of those, these projects in the priority order. Anybody have any thoughts on how you'd like to define?
I've got a couple concerns.
Okay.
One of them
Hear those
is
first.
building a new school to existing gym at Grand Valley.
Say that again, Gary.
Building a new school attached to an existing gymnasium. The concern is you're going to renovate that, it's going to have asbestos, lead, and knows what.
Renovate what?
The gymnasium. The gym.
Well, they're just gonna, it's not gonna, it's just gonna be, they won't be tearing up anything in the gymnasium.
They're just gonna build it.
There's very little asbestos in the gymnasium. It's a little bit of floor tile, there's very little.
I don't think
And
they're
that's not-
planning on doing anything with the gym area, just it being there and function as the gym, and then the middle school being built.
A
Okay.
60-year-old gym.
No, it's not that old, yeah, not that old, Carol.
You remember how
It
we-
might be.
You don't miss it by much. It's probably 50.
Sneaks up on it.
57.
That's-
It's not by much.
But it's in pretty good condition, isn't
Last time we-
No, not
It
really.
would have to be
It's
renovated.
not in great condition.
A lot. I mean, all the bleachers would have to be torn out, it needs a new floor, probably
The
needs a new
flooring's,
roof.
flooring's in pretty bad shape.
it? If that's the case, then these numbers are probably under what would be needed if you want to renovate that building.
The heating and cooling's not appropriate for that facility. It needs some work.
At the time, I mean, we were gonna renovate the gym, but at the time, they felt that they couldn't build a gym as large as what they had. Now, we can renovate it, or we can take it down, we can do the cost figures either way. It might have some asbestos in it, that's not a large concern. It's.
I just have a problem building a $12 million school, and keeping a 60-year-old gym attached to it. I think that's all it needs to do.
Well, that's not a problem for us, we can do either way, and we can make that old gym look relatively new also. Depends on how much sentimental value you wanted to keep there. At the time, the committee felt like they wanted to keep the gym, so that's why we structured it that way. But you have the ability to change that also, so it's not a problem.
I don't think there would be a sentimental value there. I mean,
I wouldn't think so, but I'm not from that area, so.
So what do you all think? Are you thinking of renovating the existing gym or demolishing, building it?
Well, I think we need to see the cost on both of them, but I mean, I'd tear it down, build a new one.
Because we've got the building there to tear down the building anyway.
Usually it's as cheap
That's
to
right.
build new than it is to renovate, and plus you have all the modern technology and insulation, and be cheaper, more efficient to be.
It probably will be a smaller facility though, if the SBA builds it. It's not gonna be near as large as it is, but it'd be,
and it would have
big.
air conditioning.
It'd be,
It almost does.
It's real
close.
It's real close.
With the skylights.
Real close.
But if the SBA doesn't contribute, if they contribute to the Midway project and not this one, it'd be your bond main, you can build as large a gym as you'd like.
Well, based on the amount of money we have.
That's good to
Right.
go. There's that little thing called money.
And the next concern, Allen Creek is the growing area of Lincoln County, and I'm not a big fan of shutting the school system down, school in Allen Creek. That's just my concern. What else do you think about whether they will block or not, it's growing. It's growing.
Does anyone know what the capacity for the new proposal to combine the two schools? The capacity is for that?
This is 270 to replace Duval. Duval 625.
We had Midway and Duval. We took 300 kids at Midway and 320 kids from Duval. Ended up, 620. I think the current numbers show 602, but we projected 620.
And what of utilization, is that the 85% of the building being utilized, is that, I'm reading that correctly? Because we had a 15%
Growth factor.
growth factor.
And that, usually when you get to 90%, your building's, would full.
This would be something we had, this is what the committee apparently is recommending, am I correct?
Yes.
And the other option would have been to build a school in the Allen Creek area to house just the existing Midway students, and the Duval pre-K 5 would remain at Duval. Is that the other
Yes.
option?
I think at one point, then they talked about maybe bringing the Duval kids out to Midway. They didn't think that would go very well. But, remember some of that?
That, yeah, the Duval meeting.
But now really, if you don't have any success with the Samarico site, and you go over to Quarter G, in essence, that's what you're doing. You're building a new school in the Allen Creek area, if it's built off Quarter G or even Corporal. You're really building a school in that vicinity to accept that growth. Whereas in Samarico, it's a little further away, but you build off Quarter G there, you're building a school in Allen, but where that growth is coming. But that's something we need to decide upon. But maybe it might be Dave, once we get to the point of knowing, Dave does work, is there sites available in Samarico, and how much it's going to cost, and how versus what sites might be available off of Quarter G, and what's it going to cost. At that time, we could make a final determination once we got the money.
Common sense will tell you the sites on Quarter G will be double what they are in Samarico.
That would be my guess.
Yes.
If you remove a mountain though,
Well, that's a different ballgame.
But now, you're going to come back to us and give us some figures on those
Yes.
land
As
acquisitions.
soon as we get, Payne and I'll get together on the Samarico sites, and then we could get some names of the sites out Quarter G, and we could compare the price of the site versus earthwork and where the utilities are and how much that, because that's a huge cost too. If we have to build a road, if we have to put in utilities, and those are costly.
So would it be appropriate for the board, you all, acceptable to you all, if we just at today's session approve building a new elementary school that would combine Midway, Duval, pre-K through 5 students, and then we'd await, we get some more information before we come up with a site? Is that acceptable to you all, that we narrow it down to at least that we're planning on building a pre-K through 5 that's going to encompass essentially the eastern part of the county, the students that go to Duval Midway right now?
Is that gonna lock us into that? So maybe we find out, about the land and we'll totally change our mind.
That's right.
And then
If
what
we
are
signed on land on Quarter G, Duval's not gonna be happy. But I mean, we can, chances are we're gonna do some changing anyway after they come back for more numbers. So I don't see a problem with approving these projects right now, That's
Amend anything.
Huh?
Or can amend.
That's right, yeah.
At any time.
You don't wanna mislead the public, and go back and change the line.
Well, I was just gonna suggest, could you put in the motion that the projects will be reviewed again once the
land has been given.
And the availability of land and whatever.
Something, so that you're not misleading the public right now. You're just allowing, or letting them know that there will be a review because you don't have the amount, the dollar amount for the land, and it might change. So-
Dave, what's our timeline of nailing this down? What are we looking at?
I'd like to get it nailed down by, this is mid-July. I'd like to get it nailed down by the first week, end of the first week in August. Try it, we can work on, the next couple of weeks, try it.
Like 3 weeks then.
I think within the next 3 to 4 weeks, we need to nail it down so that we can get all your materials ready, because we need to do some renderings and pictures of what these projects are going to look like prior to the bond vote, and so we get that information out in the public. And by September 1st, we have to have, if we do a December 15th vote, by December 1st, we have to have that filed at the circuit clerk's office on what that's going to be. I think that's what our notes said from the meeting with the bond council for December 15th vote. September 1st, we have to have all the bond call ready for the public. In other words, they have to know what the projects are, where the land's going to be, and how much each project is going to cost. And that's when we have to make public filing for that vote on December 15th. Now, if you have a later vote, of course, you can move that September 1st date back. But that's we want to have everything ready and running up and running by September 1st. And that'll be your actual bond, the sample of the bond call written out with each project, the dollar amount, and how much the SBA is going to contribute. And we have all that worked out prior to that. So within the next 3 to 4 weeks, there's a lot to do.
Let me ask you this then. Why do we have to act on anything today? Why can't we wait until 3 weeks from now when we have all the data compiled and we?
Well, I think what we wanted to do.
We come back and we say this is what's going to be. What the advantage is it for us to list these today opposed to when we might revise them 3 weeks from now?
I think what we wanted today was the approval of the projects that were listed and to go out and actually have sites selected, and if you agreed with those projects or if you didn't agree with those projects, rather than going out and making all that effort and getting, because once you start looking for property, you know, all the communication has to start, because people are going to be calling you folks and wanting to know what's going on, and they're going to be calling Jeff and asking, you know, is this project's going to happen, and that sort of thing. Because once we start looking and talking about property, people they'll call you and say, I've got 5 acres up here, I've got 10 acres up here.
That's good.
Well, that's a good thing, but you want to make sure that we get all that done in a timely manner, and if we feel that the best location is America Mountain, we need to concentrate on that and try to find a site in that vicinity, unless we want to go out toward the Allen Creek area, and then the project will change, because I don't think the Duval folks would, at that time when we met with those committees, they did not want to go out that far. They didn't understand that philosophy. So.
Well, I guess that's what of all the projects we talked about here, really, that's the only one that seems to be contentious as far as what we might want to do. So if we're not going to really finalize what we want to do over there until 3 weeks from now, I really don't see what the advantage of doing it today is.
If that project is important enough to say, that's the project I want to do. I want to combine the kids from Duval and Midway into one school on Samarico Mountain somewhere. If that's the project I want to do, or that you folks want to do, we won't look for the property on Allen Creek. Now, if we want to look at the property on Alum Creek, then the project is in limbo because you don't know whether you want to build a Midway school for Midway. And then if kids from Duval want to come over, they can, but we would be designing a school just for those 300 and some kids at Midway. Does that am I making sense there?
So they may design it actually too small to allow Duval to come over, is that what you're saying?
You would, unless if it's a bond school, you can design it as large as you want. You can have extra rooms. If the SBA has participation in it, then you're going to design that school for 300 and some odd kids, and then you can plan for expansion. But your core spaces, like your dining room, the cafeteria, those, and the media center, those spaces will always be designed for 300 and some children. There's a little bit of expansion there, but not, you don't want to, your multipurpose room, for example, would be designed for 300 and some children versus 600 and some kids, so it'd be twice the size.
On the land, I would like to have a number when you bring back the price of the land and the price of construction to get the land ready for a building.
We could break that out.
Actually, the hearts and all, because there's a big, like Fred says, quarter G's gonna cost more than Smerico for land itself, but if quarter G is already flat ready for school, and Smerico is up in the mountain, you've got another expense, and same with hearts. More excavation you do, the more it's gonna cost.
What's the pleasure of the board? You want to go ahead and approve? Now, are you saying that you want us just to approve the top 5 today, or list all 8 of them and then revise later?
If you would like to approve the top 5, and then you could always amend it when we come back and say, we're spending too much money, is there another project that's less? We could come back and amend it and add one of those other projects in. And you also need to think about, are these the 5 projects going to get this bond passed? And that's another way to look at it too.
That's what the committee went.
That's how they looked at that, trying to get something across the board, across the county, so to speak, so we can garnish some votes everywhere to have participation to pass this bond. Because they all know, there's work needed everywhere, but they felt they could get if they could put these projects out, they would pass the bond.
And what's economically feasible?
Yes.
Okay. Any further?
Well, and I'm fine with that, and maybe add what Trish said there.
We'd have to alter our motion a little bit.
Yeah, we'd have to alter a little bit, yeah.
But once we decide our motion, are we thinking that we want to, this is what it, these are all thoughts here, that we want to have Guyan Valley 6 through 8, now that existing gym, are we going to keep that terminology on there? Or are we going to take that off there?
I think probably.
We can look at it both ways.
Yeah.
I can come back with the number
That's
for
All right,
it.
so right now, we'll just leave it as is and change it if need be.
We can always amend it, and
Okay.
if it's possible to do that, even though it's gonna be a little smaller, I'm not there, you know.
But for right now, you're happy with just leaving where it says to the existing gym, and then maybe we change that until they give us figures?
We can amend it right away.
Okay, so we'll leave that. Then Midway is to build a new PK. That's America from Midway and Duval, which once again, if we talk that to could be amended, could be at LCHS, the new athletic facilities. At West Hamlet, build 4 new classrooms and restrooms. And at Parks, the athletic facilities across road on Route 10, and the cost would probably be revised on those. But those would be the 5 that would be included in this motion. And the other 3 would only be added if monies were available.
For the record, I'll include in the minutes, following your vote, to be reviewed again once sites are identified and costs established. That leaves that would be on the minutes, it'll read that way, so the board can come back to be reviewed again once sites are identified and costs established.
And so we can keep, what do you think, Brenda, can we keep that whole motion, or the rest of it too, the way it reads now with just the addition that she just gave to us? Now, we say these projects are not listed in priority order, and we've got 5, and I don't guess they are, aren't they?
No.
And they weren't by the committee
Okay,
either.
so it'll be just like you see here, with the additional comments that Brenda just gave to us, and final decisions to be made after we find out more about the land cost.
And I'll come back with a new chart, and it'll have a little bit more in-depth costs on land development on each of those sites, as well as property costs, as well as we can determine at that point.
Okay. Superintendent Lucas, is that acceptable to you? You think that's on the right track?
I do.
Okay. All right, any members of the board, any more discussion on this item here? Okay, could I have a motion then to move into the administrative section, although we've already moved in there? You gotta give it a chance here.
We're in training.
Motion, please.
I'll move.
Ms. Curry.
I'll second.
Gerald, this-
Actually, that was just the work session.
We got a
Steve.
couple
We're not
other
out of
things.
order. That was just the work session.
What's that?
I think we've got a couple other things on the second page.
Yeah, I'm getting one. Just keep that.
You're
All right.
doing good.
That's part A, then we just established those 5 projects. Okay, on B then, I'll turn this over to Ms. Lucas.
On item B, as provided for in County Policy 0150E, organization to designate the law firm of Falls Rice, McDavid, Graffin Love as the county's legal advisor for the specific project areas of practice. First one, special education. Second, school construction projects. 3, bond issue. 4, special levy election. And 5, grievance hearings. Item C, approval to post for 2 guidance counselor positions for the 2012-13 school year to fulfill the requirements of the Benetton Foundation grant.
Any discussion among the board? Just for clarification, Trish, on C now, those positions are just for the 2012-13 year, 1 year?
And for right now, I think because of the way the grant was written, and then we'll, or we could go ahead and do them for 2 years. But I think, first year, and then we would come back and post it again for the second year, continue the second year.
Okay, any other discussion on that item, administrative items? If not, I'd call for the question. All those in favor? All in this vote. Okay, the finance section, we have a motion for the finance section.
So moved.
Ms. McGowan.
I'll second.
Ms. Smith.
Ms. Birdie, not here.
I don't know if she's not for me to go see. She may have forgotten it was early meeting, I don't know.
She's there.
Did you see her?
Yeah, we talked to her a while ago.
And I really thought that they were going to send us another little few more invoices to pay. I told you in an email, but I haven't gotten it.
She's in there, isn't she, Gary? Well, she was.
Tutors now.
Now you have the most revised personnel schedule I gave you today. Everything's filled in. Paper if he wants to get all the things, I don't know.
Okay, well, we'll just hold the administrator, or the finance items in until this came here. So we'll move into the personnel schedule. Can I have a motion to do the personnel, please?
One move.
Curry, second.
Second.
Mr. McCown.
She's on her way.
All right. Trish?
Okay, personnel schedule, posting him down yesterday evening, and these are the people that we will be employing. Item A, employment of professional personnel pending their FBI, CID clearance, insurance, and certification requirements. Item B, employment of professional personnel. Item C, employment of professional personnel pending issuance of first-class permit. Item D, transfer of professional personnel. Item E, transfer of professional personnel pending completion of the certification requirements and issuance of license. Item F, employment of professional personnel pending completion of certification requirements and issuance of license. G, employment of substitute service personnel. H, transfer of service personnel. I'd like to make a correction on H5. And that will not be August 8th, that will be school year 2012-13, due to it being more than a 200-day employee. It's a flexible schedule for that employee. Item I, employment of extracurricular personnel. Item J, absence for that employee. Any questions?
There's no questions or further discussion on the personnel. I'd ask for those in favor to signify by saying aye, please. Aye. All yes vote. Now, let's go back to finance. We have a motion and a second. We're under discussion. We'll turn it over to Ms. Gandy.
Oh, okay.
Good situation.
Yeah, okay, so we have total invoices of $152,489.68. And was there any questions on that? And let me give you an update. I was here till about 8 o'clock last night, working on the program that's going to give us some more detailed information on the check register. And we're real close. I thought I would have it today, but next board meeting, I for sure will have it.
That's the only question I had.
We are very close. I'm almost there, Steve. I just need to work.
You read my mind. Mr. Wilkerson's too.
Yeah, I was hoping to have it, but Kim hasn't, we have to touch base one more time. So it's almost there.
Okay, don't put it in. Yes. What we've asked here is to get more of a description over here, because it might tell us this subject's the vendor, and that way oftentimes instead of us maybe having to ask for your question, it'll be self-explanatory. And then if not, we'll ask for a question.
And I don't care at all for you guys to ask questions, so feel free. And especially since you're new, Gary, I have no problem at all. I don't always know the answer, but I will get it to you.
Item B, then, the payroll
Yeah,
schedule.
and what we did with item B is, we've added an extra column in there so that everybody knows when these payroll reports need to be on Trina's desk, because we just consistently have problems, they're not getting to her on time. So we decided we're gonna have a date specific, and that's when they need to be on our desk.
They can come in throughout the month, but the drop dead day for all of it in order to be paid on that pay period, they have to be there. And a lot of times, we have to take into consideration that the payroll, it has to be in the bank, sent to the bank 2 days prior to payday. So she has small window. So, but if everything flows in all through the month, then we're not right up at the end.
Are pink and yellow the same thing?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Okay.
We'll make sure you saw
It worked.
We like color coding.
Things away.
Okay. Any further discussion about the finance section, please? If not, we'll call for a question on the finance. All those in favor? Aye. All yes, vote. Fine. Okay, that brings us down to comments and concerns. Conclusion.
We have had a question, Mr. Curry had asked a question, and we have been trying to find the answers to some of the issues at the Harts Pre-K 8 school. And since Mr. Ferguson is here today, this might be a good time, and Mr. Smith, to address, I think, the first concern that they had mentioned to us earlier, the roof leaking. And there had been some correspondence, I think, emails from you, Mr. Smith, to
Radford.
Radford, and we have copies.
And there's a
of
letter
those.
in your tray signed today.
Okay.
Correct.
In order to try to get them to come back or fix the leaking. Also, the security cameras are not connected.
They did come back and work on it, but I don't know if they finished.
This is a different contractor, right?
This is a
Right.
different contractor. This is Mason and Barry and Jordan Smith would be the security people.
But still, this would all be under the general contractors.
That's a separate
It's
contract.
a separate contract, but the roof is
The
under
roof is under the general contractor, and it's a company out of Wheeling, I think is why we're having trouble getting it back down here to fix leaks.
Well, it still should be Radford's responsibility. I can call Radford. I didn't know about the roof leaks. You know where
There's
they are?
several.
It's a company out, it's called,
No, I mean, you know where the roof leaks are?
yeah, I've got them listed on my, like the vice principal's office, for example.
You're getting a copy of the letter that's going to Radford.
You mean there are more
I've
than
got a
one,
CC.
man?
There's more than one. There's
Yeah, there's
one,
probably 4, 5, 6 different places identified.
yeah.
Well, let me just make sure I get a copy of where they are, so when I call Radford, I can tell them.
And another thing was the scoreboard was not operating. not
That
operating
hadn't been
correctly.
fixed since the school started. There was a problem with one of the scoreboards. in it.
What, who's responsible?
That'd be Jordan Smith. Did, no, Radford put that
Be Radford, I believe.
I'll check on that.
And I've got that in with my same email with the roof leaks I mentioned in this corridor. Several other items.
Oh, what about the noise level?
Yeah, that's in the letter.
Huh?
That's in the letter.
Well, does the SBA know about these problems we're having?
I didn't know about some of them.
Well, we have emails where Mr. Smith has emailed them in April, was April or May?
April the 23rd.
Okay.
Right.
Email Radford.
Brian Anderson or?
Ansley and him,
Whatever
Glenn.
their
I
name
sent
I'll
it to
talk to
Glenn.
Glenn. Yeah, Glenn will forward them on to Radford.
I sent it to Glenn and Radford.
I guess my issue is I don't know if it's been fixed. When we send an email on voicemail from Radford, sometimes we'll follow up or you'll call, say, yeah, we fixed it. I know they came back on something, but I don't know.
If they fixed it after school, because it was still leaking when the school was still.
Okay.
Now, doesn't someone have to sign off on all this stuff? Say that it's finished? And correct?
Or final payment. They still haven't made final payment to Radford on his retainage.
I think there's $5,000.
Just $5,000.
That's
On
all
the
it's
retainage,
in.
is that what's left?
And I was involved in thoughts, you know,
So-
final.
What Greg's talking about is a final checklist, everything's okay, and you make your final
Yeah,
payment.
that's generally the punch list.
Well, I mean, have we done that?
That's been, the punch list was done a while back, the issues that come up after,
Oh, these are probably
these are
correct.
come up
Think
after.
you're okay.
Yeah, and that's the retainage that we're holding. And if, you know, if something happens and he's not fixing it, we can take that retainage and go back and fix it.
Excuse me, I notice we have a payment here to Mason and Barry. That's not a final payment for
No,
any services.
no, that would be something from maintenance department.
That may be just something
But-
they fixed. They do repair work on other schools.
Yeah, Mason Berry's a subcontractor to Jordan Smith, who did the electrical portion of that.
So that's probably unrelated to the, it would be unrelated
To the hardest situation.
to the Hart situation, because that money would go directly to Jordan Smith, so that's not related to Hart's.
Okay, good.
Also, if you've got a roof leak and you've got water problems, you're gonna end up with smaller problems.
Right,
So it's going to compound the longer it goes.
I tried to find a local company that would honor the warranty to get it fixed. And they don't want to do that because they're not real happy with Carlisle's payment policy, who's the manufacturer of the
That's the
roof.
roofing, okay.
Because I thought maybe another local company would honor the warranty, Carlisle's warranty, but they don't want to.
Okay.
You know?
It's usually because of who installed it. They don't want
That's typically what, and this company from Alsquil, it's Cal Roof or Cal something.
It's, Calproof.
Cal,
Calproof.
Calproof something, it's kind of strange.
It's strange.
Name, weird.
and who was in charge of the security cameras? Which-
Jordan Smith.
Jordan Smith.
That's probably Jordan Smith, and I'll call,
They're not working. Right.
They worked one day on it, but I don't.
It's not, they're not.
Evidently, it's not
do you think it's a Mason Berry issue or electrical?
Mason and Barry was there too. I
When
believe
they go up
it's,
there and work on stuff, doesn't anybody here know whether they fixed it or not, or they just go home and?
Nobody in the building.
Greg Gosney was with him, he would probably know.
Yeah, but you one should know. I mean, you need to be informed of.
Is our clerk of the works out of this loop now?
Oh, yeah,
He's
he's
been
done,
gone since-
he's done since the building.
So now, he's not involved.
I'm sorry.
They're responsible for a year, that's what we're looking at now, right?
Well, they're responsible to come back and fix it.
For a year.
Yeah, there's a year warranty, and they have to come back and fix it. If it's not been fixed, if something has not worked, then that probably get extended. But that has to work.
November 17th is our year. That's the date.
Maybe Ms. Lucas can share some other items, and we can make sure they all
If
get
you,
correct.
if you can get me a list,
Card readers,
email me, well, that goes with the security system.
okay.
Water under the
Those,
cafeteria doors.
yes, the doors in the cafeteria and the classrooms along the back.
Threshold.
Yes, where the water was coming underneath. And of course, the telephones. Who,
That's somebody you all have.
That may just be a local issue.
That's Armstrong.
That's Armstrong.
that's still not.
It's not done for
So
this.
the other things are all with the Radford, the contractor, and this is Armstrong.
The phone system is on.
No, water running in the back door, the cafeteria door, that been corrected?
That's the threshold issue. Now, I thought that was done, but evidently it's not.
Even
Threshold
though,
issue.
even
How's the
though-
water getting that high to come over top the threshold?
I don't know, there's a seal that they didn't install in the beginning. They told us they went back and installed it, and they fixed the problem. But I didn't know it was still happening, that's why.
Say the concrete is sloped to the building instead of wave.
No, it's.
I checked that, it's
concrete's
not
slow.
that.
It's not.
It's not that.
It's just, it's a hard windy pipe rain. It's kind of blowing under the door. The concrete sloped.
We asked Danny then that for you to come back here in a couple of weeks when we meet, give us an update on all these items. Do that. That way Mr. Ferguson have time to communicate with them.
Yeah, I'll call Radford and Jordan Smith today. See what their status is.
When they fix the problem, somebody should be signing off on it.
Yeah, I was gonna say there should be some kind of checklist
Yeah.
and this is being completed and.
Maybe you could share that with them, maybe talk to them to communicate that they're gonna be there with things.
Okay.
And then Danny would know, then go up and walk around with them.
So they should need to check for water damage also.
I took the ceiling tiles out, so I know the roof leaks,
Not compensated.
it's not height to compensation.
Okay. Any other issues regarding project? Dana will come back to us in a couple of weeks to give us an update on that. Anything else?
Well, I would like to report, Mr. Midkiff, Mr. Priestley and I attended a meeting at the State Department yesterday regarding the OEPA visit that they were here on June the 28th. And what they stated is that our schools have received full approval. Is that correct? Is that correct? Is that what they said?
Like I said.
I don't want to be wrong. Is that what they said, Mr. Priestley?
I agree, and so does Sean.
Sean was there. I was going to rely on Sean to take it.
I haven't even started writing it yet, but that's what my notes have, yeah.
Okay.
But there's so much terminology, and like we were saying, there's different terminology for every stage along the way. But that was yesterday's key words.
Yes. And we no longer will need to be sending any minutes or agendas or anything to the State Department. And the OEPA will be back in the fall for another review. And we're looking forward to them giving us, complete, full approval, I guess, and they will not have to do that. But, I felt that it was a very positive, meeting, and report, regarding our, school district and the way that the board is operating and, that we have, students in mind, and that's what we do have, and we're working well together. So I expect that to continue. And we will, not that we don't want the OEPA in here, but, they may need to be elsewhere, we, everybody's welcome.
For those that don't know, they came back in the latter part of June to look at the issues that had been identified as concerns a year ago. And what they found was that those things have been corrected. So they've conveyed those now to the state board, and then based upon that, I guess is the reason yesterday they chose to give us full approval status. Pending the next review.
And that was due to the memorandum of understanding that was in place. So they want to fulfill that requirement in the MOU and then release us, say farewell, whatever. But any questions about that meeting for those of you that did not attend? At 12:30 instead of 9 o'clock. I know. We were anxious.
Okay, we're scheduled now to be on July 17th at 6 o'clock. Okay. Still our plan.
I have a question. I just wanted to kind of
follow up. The letter was sent out to Lincoln Primary and Southern regarding the sign. Did we hear anything back from them at all?
I haven't heard anything.
Just hoping that they would kind of help us with that price on the sign. Maybe they still will.
They may, they may be waiting on a board meeting or, something, for each of their entities. I'm not sure.
We're kind of waiting to see their response before we take the next step on our work on our other sign, right? Okay. Okay.
What other sign? I'm missing something here.
Well, the sign-
Was this executive session, maybe?
No, sir, it was an open session.
Okay.
I think you weren't here.
Oh, okay. Rare.
What we talked, you've alluded to it before, Sean, the first sign that was built that was minuscule with the letter writing, we've talked among the board and also with Mr. Sachs as to using that old sign for some other message and kind of leaving that up to the school maybe to make suggestions to us. Realizing that there would probably be some additional cost involved in that, we have sought some funding assistance from the Lincoln Primary Care Center at Southwestern Community College because they had initially indicated that they would want to assist in the cost of the sign. So now that we've corrected the major issue with the new sign that has their names right visible from the bar, maybe they'd be more receptive to helping us correct or put something new, a new message on the old sign.
It's never been clear to me. Did they help with the cost of either sign?
No.
They didn't. Okay.
But I think they indicated that they were willing, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was some concern here that some of us were somewhat embarrassed to ask.
Ashamed to ask them to help with that pitiful sign.
Okay.
But now we got the other sign, we're not ashamed.
So they never gave an undertaking to help with the replacement sign. Their undertaking was to help with the first sign,
And they
which
hadn't.
and they hadn't. But okay.
But we're hoping now that it's more visible and a nice sign that they'd be more receptive to helping us on sign number, which is really sign number 1.
And we haven't come up with a design or anything
Okay.
for sign number 2, but we kind of thought about, tossed it around about a panther's head.
Okay.
Or something with a panther on it or something to that effect.
Okay.
That was my idea.
Yeah. We'll
Although
we'll
Mr.
get
Curry's on his notes here. Let him have it.
Okay, I'm up to speed.
Right, yeah, we're good. I think what we've kind of asked Mr. Sachs, for maybe some student input, what they might want to see. Because we kind of envision maybe some lettering on the sign in addition to maybe the panther head, body, or whatever might be on there. Okay. If there's nothing for it, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn on July 17th at 6 o'clock at the county office. Mr. Cowles,
a second.
Ms. Smith, all in favor? Aye.